You look at yourself in the mirror and you see a face that's totally void of all emotion. You don't see a 19-year-old kid anymore. You just look at a face that looks like he's 40 years old now all of a sudden.
I never had camaraderie with another man like I did in Vietnam. It's that kind of a closeness that you had with everybody.
I was going to a security police tech school at the time, and they came in and said they needed 25 volunteers to go to dog school. They put us in a large room and said that 25 people will volunteer. And they had you sign a piece of notepaper that stated, "I volunteered." And then once you signed that, they said, "You got the rest of the day off now." So I remember I wasn't exactly too eager right away at first. I think I was volunteer number 16 or something like that. My name is Royal Hetling, and I was assigned to the 43rd Security Police Squadron, stationed at Cameron Bay Air Base in 1970-71 to the K-9 units. When we arrived there in August, when the plane landed, the day cattleman was there and greeted us. On our way over to the east side, the truck pulled over in front of what was called the Naval Air Facility. And he pointed across the road to a little village we called Mika Village. He says 12 Vietcong sappers came out of there, destroyed this guard shack over here and that observation tower, killed about 3 naval people, and attacked that naval facility. This is what your tour is going to be like here. Welcome to Vietnam.
Drafted?
I was going to be. And then when I found out I was going to get drafted, your number comes up, and then all of a sudden you quit taking the number. My boss told me, let me know about a month and a half before you go, because I need to get somebody to replace you, and it's going to take me a while. So I told him, you better get somebody. They're taking them really fast. They're taking like 20 a month. Then as soon as I got somebody, they dropped down to 2 a month. So now it's a long ways, and they're not taking nobody now. Said I was going to be forever before I go, and I don't have a job. I got nothing, so went down to try to file for unemployment because my friend did that and he got it. I filed, and the guy gets done. He says, "I hope you're not planning on drawing compensation." I said, "Well, I was hoping so." "Oh, we'll find a job for you." I said, "Don't bother. I'm getting ready to be drafted into the Army." "Oh, you're going to go to the Army?" He looks at my thing and says, "Oh, have you ever thought about the Marine Corps? Looks by your credentials, you're just the kind of guy they're looking for. And it just so happens my son's the Marine recruiter in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Should I have him come to see you?" "Might as well," I said. So I left the unemployment office in Marshall. I just drove in the yard at home. Mom comes out and says, "Hey, somebody from Sioux Falls is on the phone for you." I barely got home. There he's already calling, wants to meet. So that's how I got in. And then we got sent to boot camp, and I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life because I thought the world would come to an end. I was in the United States Marine Corps in Vietnam with 2nd Battalion Infantry Unit, 2nd Battalion 5th Marines from April 1966 to about April 1967. We did just about everything, but I was in a forward area all the time, and you could be hit almost any time. I never had camaraderie with another man like I did in Vietnam in the infantry. I could meet, like you and I never met before, and I'd be out on perimeter watch, and you'd come along and you'd say, "Is this position 34? And I said, "Yes, it is." Well, you'd say, "Well, I got it with you." So we'd sit down there all night. It'd be like, we never seen each other before. We talked like we were just like that, personal stuff. And then in the morning, and I don't even know your name. I can't remember your name. And you take off to your company because you're in a different company and you went on a different mission than I did. So we'd never see each other again, but it's that kind of a closeness that you had with everybody.
The story about canines in Vietnam, a lot of people don't realize that in 1965, the military brought 4,000 dogs to Vietnam under Operation Top Dog. And they served mainly at 3 main roles: scouts, trackers, and sentries. I think the first use of dogs actually started back in World War I. I don't exactly know the exact history, but I think it's more incidental. It was a dog named Stubby, I believe. You started more as a pet, and then it turned out that the pet found to have some military value. Then during World War II, the Doberman Pinscher, especially in the South Pacific Islands. Then in Korea, they used them more so than Vietnam, more so too. Unfortunately, the first dog I was assigned to was a Shepherd Black Lab mix named Pepper. Pepper and I did not exactly get along too good, but my sergeant at the time kept saying, "Keep trying, you'll come around, keep trying. Here's some dog treats, just play with him in his kennel today, and just get on his good side." So I said, okay. He let me in his kennel run right away because he knew I had those dog treats, so I'm breaking those dog treats in little pieces, giving it to him little piece at a time. And I'm down to my last little tidbit. I'm on the far end of his run. Then I heard a little faint growl, and I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. And it's a good thing. What was very popular at the time was what they called an under-the-wrist watch. It was a watch you wore under the wrist, had a wide band, and you had 2 buckles on the top side of your wrist. He came at me, and I saw those big 4 big canine teeth coming, so I just shoved my wrist in his mouth. And he chomped down on that band, and the first chomp, he had that band completely off. And he was chomping down on my wrist while I'm trying to grab my other hand to get that gate open to get out. I got out, got the gate shut, and I looked at my wrist, and he had bitten me several times. The kennelman kind of walked over and said, "He got you?" I said, "Yep, he got me." Right away, the medic said, "Okay." He said, "This qualifies for the Purple Heart." I said, "Oh, you got to be kidding. Forget it." I said, don't even write this up." I said, "This is embarrassing. You're a dog handler and you get bit by your own dog?" I said, "I'm not going to live this one down." By the time I got back to my hooch, right away it was all up and down canine. Well, "Hey, hear that? Pepper got the new guy." Then the kennel attendant says, "Well, don't feel too bad about it. You're only the 8th one he's bitten." About a day or two later, I was reassigned to another dog named Thunder. We bonded almost immediately, and he was a real winner. Which Thunder was a sentry dog. We will go out at night from the time the sun went down to the time the sun came up in the morning, and we would secure such things as camp perimeters or any target that was considered to be of high priority that the BC would likely try and destroy.
You had to be ready all the time, even though nothing was happening. But it wasn't like the movie show where they're like Rambo showing bodies flying all over and he's attacking. He could never get by with that in real life. What I experienced wasn't nothing like that. It was more like you're alert all the time and waiting for something to happen. 2 months, nothing had happened. Then all of a sudden, bang, something had happened. We were on a perimeter watch and we had not real heavy rain, just a light mist. The sky was lit up 50% of the time with flashes, and then it'd be dark, flashes, dark. And the Viet Cong hit our side of the hill with about 7 or 8, 10 shots, and then we shoot back. Hundreds of rounds were going back. And the Viet Cong always would say, "Yeah, the Americans got many bullets." And I guess that one night proved it. Not everybody had a radio, and I was one that had a radio in my position. And so the command bunker's calling because they're hearing all this shooting on our side. "What's going on out there? Do you need reinforcements? Do you need help?" And I said, "No, sir, I think we're going to be okay. I think they're just a harassment attack." I see this flash, a light. It's so bright it was white for just a 1/10 of a second. And that's all I remember. And I'm just laying there. And I'm thinking, they shot a mortar round. I've been hit with a mortar and I'm dead now. I'm killed. Then I lay there a while. I get the most calm feeling. And then the more I'm thinking, I thought, I think I'm still in Vietnam. I didn't know you stayed in Vietnam when you were dead. I thought you went someplace else. And then I started getting scared because I thought, maybe I'm still alive. Still didn't know what was going on. And there's a guy next to me, and I said something about, "Brown, did you feel something just a little bit ago?" He said, "God, it felt like somebody hit me in the head with a 2x4. We didn't know what happened. We thought we were both, like a mortar round had hit me. Like we were still thinking that. And then we started feeling, because there's supposed to be a third one with us, we couldn't find him. And he wasn't dead in the bottom of our hole that we dug. So we couldn't find his body or nothing. So I started saying his name out, and then pretty soon I hear he comes, he's under a bush about 25 feet from us. In the rain, I said, "What in the world are you doing out there?" When he come back, and he said, "Well, you scared the heck out of me." He said, "You lit up like a Christmas tree and sparks were flying all over you." And I didn't know what to do, so I got the heck out of here. And then we kind of determined it was lightning, because we heard on the radio that somebody said, "God, did you see that lightning bolt just a little bit ago?" Then we determined that, and the lightning had hit my radio is what happened. And it went through my ear. It tried to go out my feet and my fingers, but it couldn't. But went out the top of my head, and I blew a hole in my scalp about the size of a 50-cent piece. I did find out later on that 5 other ones were hit by lightning, and they all died.
One funny story there, if you want to call it funny here. I was supposed to be kind of securing part of the control tower, and we came under a rocket attack that night. And you're still fairly new in country there, so this is still, you're still part of that learning curve, you're kind of learning how things do. And I'm starting to watch the rounds coming in, they're coming in, I'm kind of watching them, they're coming in a little closer and closer and a little closer. And finally it dawns on you that, hey, these things are getting a little close, I should think about taking cover here. So in your inexperience there, you kind of look around real quick, where's my best cover? And there's a lot of sand, and sand blows around like soldiers here do. And I saw a small tree, and there's like a little crater that formed around that tree. It was about 20 feet away from me, so I covered it in about 2 or 3 steps, and I dove in behind it. As I picked my head up, here I saw my rifle. I firmly planted the muzzle in the sand. And I quickly pulled it out, and I had plugged the muzzle with sand. So I had to quickly break it down and put my cleaning rod through it to clear the sand out. All this time, here's Thunder standing on top of the sand dune, just looking at me. And if you could read a dog's mind, like he's standing there saying, "Where did they get this guy from?" And I got my hands full. If I could look out for him this entire year here, yeah, I got my balls full, No, when we were there, they would like to have you walk across the patrol to your assigned area. So like walking a beat. What I found best is that Victor Charlie, he knows you're there. Why do you want to make yourself that visible to him? I like darkness and shadows. He likes darkness and shadows and cover. So I tried to adopt as much of his tactics as I could to myself. I'd be always asking myself, now, if I was Mr. Victor Charlie, if I was going to come through here, where would I choose to come through? Some nights, the stress level would be rather high because, your dog would be alerting. That's when you kind of know, okay, now it's the mind game. Now he's not playing with me. He knows I'm here somewhere. Now let him try and figure out where I'm at. You can just kneel down by Thunder and you just talk to him and say, "Thunder, if you can just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. That's all I need is 1 second." And you just pat him a little bit and tell him what a good dog he is. And you just stand up and you check your rifle over again, just to make sure that that's working okay. Check the magazine, you feel that spring in the bottom, reload that magazine in it, and you put a chamber in the round, and then you put your selector to full automatic. Because you know that if they're going to come through there, you're not going to have any time to get any radio message off or anything like that. The only way you're going to be able to warn anybody is see how long you can hold your finger on that trigger. And so then you just start walking down that narrow lane, and your mouth is so dry you can't swallow. Your heart is not beating in your chest, it's pounding in your chest, and you're trying your darndest to walk on air. And once you reach the other end of your area into the clearing, you see the reflection of your own shadow, and you empty a clip into it. That's how tense you are. But you catch yourself just short of doing it. Then you look, and you just say, "God, I'm way out over here. Everyone else is way back over there." my only way to get back over there to wherever anyone else is, I got to go back down that same lane again. So you go back to the same emotion again, going back down that lane again, thinking, well, they weren't there the first time. They may be there this time. So you go back through that again. Well, you make it through there the first time. When you get back there, now they tell you, keep going, got to keep doing it. For the next several hours you're doing that. Well, it turns out that you were okay that night. Nothing happened that night. It was all over where you were the night before. But you come in the morning, you climb into your bunk. You really don't sleep good because you're just so wound up yet. You get up, you head to the latrine, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you see a face that's totally void of all emotion. You don't see a 19-year-old kid anymore. You just look at a face that looks like he's 40 years old now all of a sudden.
I was looking forward to coming back here. I was going to be farming, going to be doing this and that. That was going to be, we had everything planned out. I thought, God, this is going to be great. I mean, everything's over. I've done everything right, the right way, and everything's turning out. When I come back, everything went to pot. Nobody liked you. Everybody's protesting. Everything was wrong with what you did. You know, you're almost like because you went to Vietnam, now you're, I don't know what the word for it, but you're a bad person now because you went to Vietnam. But my choice was go to Vietnam or go to prison or go to Canada. The three choices I had at that time. So most of them went in the military and went to Vietnam.
When I came back, the country was divided right down the middle. And you didn't want to talk about it for the simple fact that you did not know the person that you were talking to, what their opinion of it was. And so you never brought the subject up. Over the years, talking with other Vietnam vets, I always got the sense that a lot of them were lacking that closure.
Every day of my life I come back, I thought about Vietnam. Not maybe a lot. Sometimes it's just like for 5 minutes. Other times, most of the day, I dwell on it. Like, because here nobody liked you. Everybody's mad at you when you come back. And so it's just like, where I belong. I don't know where I belong. If I belong over there or belong here, you know. It was really a state of confusion mixed up. I wanted to go back, but yet I felt scared every time I went back. I felt like very uncomfortable, but yet I was still missing it. But I went back with a tour group first because I was scared to go back by myself. And when I went back to Vietnam, I thought, God, I know a lot about Vietnam. I spent a year in the Marine Corps and infantry. When I got back to Vietnam, I found out I didn't know squat. When you went with a tour, you had to go where everybody wanted to, and I was the only one that wanted to go to the places I was at. Then when I got my interpreter, I found out how to get there, and then I could spend all day there. So I started going back on my own. I could do it cheaper that when I found out how to do things. So then I'd stay a month each time. Then I started bringing back this stuff.
I wanted to do something to remember those guys who did not go home. And so I just did not want their names just to become a name on a bulletin board and nothing more about them. Tom Bradley, Army vet, he had 57 days left when he was killed. And this is the last letter he wrote to his parents on June 18th. He was killed the following day. And what was kind of emotional there, the last postscript he put on was to his dad. He said, Dad, I'm sorry I didn't send anything up for Father's Day. I couldn't get into Coochie to get it. And in his letter, he apologized for not writing more often. And he said, I'll try and do better. Death notices were usually given within 2 to 3 days from date of casualty. Mail service at best was 4 to 5 days. So they got this letter probably 2 to 3 days after they got the death notice. Can you about imagine how traumatic that could be for the family?
Royal got the wall to come here, and it started with that. And then pretty soon I started getting more stuff every time I went back, bringing back some of these and labeling what they were.
So Charlie kind of had this idea here, about doing this and memorializing them here too, but he kind of wanted to go much more than just remembering them. He wanted to cover more of the history of how we got involved there and tell people the story of Vietnam, what all happened there.
These marble portraits, I got the idea, went over there, and a friend of mine had one made. And it looked pretty nice and cool, so I thought, God, that looks pretty, it's something unique. The only problem is they're a little hard to come back because they're heavy. I can only do about 3 at a time because that's all I can carry. I think I made 60-some portraits of them, of everything, like of the ones that were killed in action and these stories were telling. I had to go through an interpreter for everything, so I learned a lot from her. That's why I did her story, because that's all stories about her then. And there's about 10 different stories, how it affects her on the way as a kid growing up and what she's seeing with the Viet Cong and how she gets involved with them and tried to sneak out of the country and didn't make it. Then here she's going to prison now for trying to get out. They were in a prison and she had her kid with her, but she gave the kid up because she didn't think it was a good place for him. And other women in the prison said, "You fool, you shouldn't have done that. They would have let you go because all you did was try to get out of Vietnam. You didn't rob nobody or you didn't kill nobody." But she planned to escape because she found this hollow tree before, this big hole, but there's all red ants in it. She said, if we come back again, I'm going to try to sneak out. She started making her plan to get out. So just before they're going to take them back, when the guards weren't looking, she crawled in that hollow tree. And she said, it's just big enough so I could sit all the way down in and hide with my head way down. She had her raincoat on, and she put papers in her nose and in her ears to keep the red ants out of her nose and ears. But she's in there a while. She said, I didn't know how long I could take it. They were biting so bad. And then finally they left. So she said, I went out and laid in the ocean for about 2 or 3 hours. That felt better, but my skin was just on fire from those bites. Or at night, I got up and started walking. And when morning come to this place and the sun was coming up, and my skin was on fire and the sun just made it burn more. So she said, I'm going to die here. So she said, I just passed out and laid there. And she said, I thought that was it, I was dead. Then I wake up laying in the water by the boat. And here these 4 boys were illegally cutting wood on the island, and they found her. And they put her in the water, and they knew what kind of jungle thing, ointment, to rub on her to help the red ant bites, so they got that to rub on her. And so they built a little chamber for her on their boats on the bottom, and put the wood over it to hide her, and took her back to Ho Chi Minh City. And they knew somebody that worked for the South Vietnamese soldiers, a doctor, so they took her to him. This is a North Vietnamese soldier's mess kit, so it just shows that he was thinking about this woman that he had up north. And he drew a picture of a flower and a butterfly on his mess kit and their initials on the mess kit with his province that he was fighting in the South, on the cover. So, just to go to show that they're people just like anybody else. They got feelings and emotions too. Sometimes we like to demonize the other side, like they're no good or they're just kind of want to show a different side of things. If you only tell one side, it gets pretty lopsided.
So a person wants to come in and browse, they can browse for some time here. Some people come in and they'll tell us that they've learned more than what they've ever known before. Hopefully it'll be around for years to come. We know we won't be, but hopefully it will be. So we hope there'll be a legacy here somewhere.
My interpreter had a boyfriend that was a Marine. He had a dog. And when he left, he couldn't take the dog with him, so he gave her the dog. Approximately May 17, 1975, now Vietnam's fallen, and that's her there. And now the police are going through the house. You can't have anything that's related to South Vietnam or America. That's the police in the brown, the soldiers, the North Vietnamese soldiers are in the green. And they're searching all your stuff and burning it that you can't have. And I asked her, that's her and her mother and her little sister. I said, were you scared? She said, yeah. Because all you do is sit there and say nothing. You couldn't ask a question, you couldn't do nothing. Just let them do what they wanted with your stuff and burn it. And then the picture fell out of one of the books. And the police say, that's the same dog that's in the picture, that's an American dog. So, being they couldn't have anything American, they took the dog out and shot it.
Out of those 4,000 dogs that were brought there, in our hurry to get out, they only brought 204 out. And the rest, they gave the veterinarians and vet techs just two options. Either turn them over to the South Vietnamese military, where they faced an uncertain fate, or they were to be destroyed. And unfortunately, Thunder was ordered to be destroyed about a year after I left. I always viewed him as being my dog. He wasn't the person who had him before me, and he wasn't the person that took him over after me. He was mine. And I guess that's the way I will always remember him as a. I do think that that's the only reason I survived is because of him. What I did there without a dog, I don't think I'd be here today.
The last place I was happy was Vietnam. When I left there, I haven't been happy since. I really felt like I was doing something or accomplishing something or doing something constructive, and I had friends that I knew over there and that, and like, I just felt like a sense of worthwhileness. And I always did my job good and always never did anything that I can regret. I went back to Vietnam 33 times, so I was looking for the good memories, like the camaraderie that I had and some of the, because I only had good memories when I was over there. I was looking for those more.
Clearly I am hoping for a scout to come and take me by the hand, lead me through the forest deep and drop me off upon the strand. For I'm only just a boy trying to get home. I can feel the silence of the cold. Things have not turned out as planned.
This program is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
I'm only just a boy trying to get home.